Hey everybody, it's Steve Halley here with the Family Peace Initiative, and welcome to the March edition of the Facilitator's Tool Chest blog. Today I want to talk with you about the enlightened witness and the power of the golden shadow message. Alice Miller really introduced us to this idea some time ago, and she talks about the enlightened witness being able to take the edge off of the damage that the river of cruelty creates for people. And as she's described in her writings about the enlightened witness, the absence of somebody who loved us, who could put voice to our experience, to recognize and accept our reality, the absence of this person can do great damage in the long-term living experience for somebody. And I want to tell you a little bit about how that works in our classes. We spend a lot of time working with core beliefs, shadow messages, golden shadow messages, talking internal focused dialogue, helping people to become less afraid of their own story. As people become less afraid of themselves and their own story, they become safer to themselves and others. It's only really when I'm afraid of being seen that I'm willing to do whatever it takes in order to not be seen as weak, as inferior, as inadequate, as stupid, on and on and on. Our enlightened witness and conversations about the enlightened witness help us to understand our story a little bit more and help us to understand who we might become in our life's experience. So let's explore that a little bit. And the Family Peace Initiative talks about facilitators leading by example. And so if I'm going to ask you to look into your enlightened witness story and experience, then it's incumbent on me to give you that example through my own life. And the person who comes to mind for me is Mrs. Jones, my sixth grade teacher. The memory that I have when I think about Mrs. Jones is me walking down the small hallway of my elementary school, walking towards my sixth grade classroom with Mrs. Jones standing on the doorway, welcoming her students to the day. Well, I could see this kind of glint in her eye as I approach, and I got a glint in my eye as I approach, because I know she's going to try to hug me. And I know that I'm going to try to avoid being hugged. And I think we played this game daily for the entire time I was in the sixth grade. I worked very hard not to be hugged by her, and she worked very hard to hug me. And there was some days when I allowed her to catch me and she would hug me. And I have to tell you, I loved that. It was an amazing experience, and I remember that because the experience, the message I was getting from Mrs. Jones was that I was special, that I was loved, that I was worthy, that I was literally okay. And the important part of the enlightened witness story is that we need enlightened witnesses to be able to counteract messages that we're getting in other places in our life. And I can tell you at that time, in sixth grade, I was not feeling like I was loved, special, okay. I grew up in a family of very academically oriented people. Grades were very important. And so me being a basketball player, ADHD, kind of just busy, needing to move, and I wasn't at all interested in sitting down and doing my homework. And so I would be getting messages of, what's the matter with you? Are you stupid? Can't you do this work? You almost have to try to make grades this badly. And, it felt like something was wrong with me. And that was coming from my family, my household. Mrs. Jones gave me a message that counteracted that, because she didn't care. I don't know that she didn't care, but it didn't impact the way she saw me. I could do whatever on a math test, whatever on a spelling test, whatever on any kind of test we had, and she would still try to hug me the next day. So we have this conversation, and I hope you recognize people in your life who loved you for no other reason other than you were you. You couldn't lose it. You could not lose their love and affection. That it was like they gave you a message that they could see something in you that maybe you were having trouble seeing in yourself at the time. That's a big deal. So how it plays out in our room is that we invite people. If we're live, we have a whiteboard and we draw 3 columns on the board. The first column is who are the people that come to mind. The list is amazing. You have grandmothers, priests, ministers, coaches, teachers, neighbors, family members, best friends. There's a remarkable list of people that we can get that love and validation from. And, we find out who was it in your life. And then we make a list in the middle of the board of what did they do. And this is a really important list because it really, in a simplified form, describes love in action. If I'm in a loving relationship with my partner, with my kids, with my colleagues, what am I doing? It's almost always the same. It's, they made time for me, they believed in me, they supported me, they listened to me, they saw me, they were there for me. That's simplified love in action. And then we go to the third column. The third column is where the internal focused dialogue takes kind of another step into the pool, where we say, what did it feel like when your enlightened witness, when your person who loved you, when they were doing these things, what did it feel like they were saying about you? What was the message? For me, ultimately, when I boil it down with Mrs. Jones, she was telling me that I was loved and I was okay. And I needed to hear that because I wasn't getting that message in other places at the time. And other people in your groups will tell you the same thing, that I'm loved, that I'm worthy, I'm seen, I'm valuable, I'm special, I'm good enough. Right. And so we apply this golden shadow message, which that's what that is, right? This I'm valuable, I'm worthy. And then we start applying it through the weeks with, well, great, when you think about the last time you were violent or abusive, and if you knew that you were worthy, how does a worthy man handle that situation that you were confronted with back then? And it's remarkable that they will almost always say things like, I'm not exactly sure what I would have done, but I would have never done what I did. A worthy man would not have done that. Because I'm pretty sure, and I think the group members will validate this, is that when we're living out of our golden shadow message, when I'm not in this narcissistically inflated sense of self of, look, I'm better than everybody else, but I'm just okay, I'm worthy, I'm special in my own right. We're not abusive and violent to others. When we're being abusive and violent, we're giving away our shadow message to others. When we are living in love and kindness, when we're gentler and kinder to others, as Brene Brown says, we're not giving away our shadow message. We're giving other people our golden shadow message of, I'm okay, I'm worthy, I'm loved. And that's a powerful shift in somebody's perspective on the world. And in the river of cruelty, which the vast majority of our people who are in our programs have an incredible story of survival, of what they had to survive in order to even get to adulthood. It's easy for them to come out of their childhood with shadow message beliefs. There's so much evidence that seems to support that we're nothing, we're stupid, we're a disappointment, there's something wrong with us. But then our enlightened witnesses show up and go, oh no, you're worthy, you're loved, you're special, you're okay. And then we get the sometimes lifelong struggle of trying to figure out how to live out of one belief or the other, and recognizing when those beliefs are even present in our lives. And we can see them most easily by recognizing how we're treating other people. So I want you to be able to see the Golden Shadow message has really untapped potential. And as I've been thinking about it over the years, I'm convinced it's one of the most powerful tools that gets such little recognition, and we really have to get better at implementing that. But it almost always is connected to, why did we need that message now? And so we ask that question in the room. These messages are powerful, the Golden Shadow message. Why did you need that from your grandmother now? Because I was not experiencing anything in my life that made me feel like I was loved. I was lonely, I was being hurt, and I was not safe. And my grandmother loved me at a time when I desperately needed it. So what's happening is we're walking into their sacred ground, beyond the cover story. Right? We're walking into the parts of their story that they rarely ever share with others. And as so many people have laid out over the years, as we become less afraid of our own story, we become safer to ourselves and safer to others. So the last thing I want to say about this enlightened witness conversation, which probably needs hours upon hours, is that the loss of an enlightened witness can be one of the most painful experiences of our life. Probably the second most painful experience is probably the loss of our first love. Right? When we lose a relationship with our first love, they write songs about that. Cat Stevens wrote "The First Cut is the Deepest," and that's what he was singing about. But you can hear people talk about that when you have these conversations about enlightened witness. Jimmy is a good example. He talked about his grandmother, and when his grandmother died, his life spun out of control. And they will quote that. They'll say, gosh, when my grandmother died, when my grandfather died, when my uncle died, when my mother died, it's like my life spun out of control. That's when I stopped caring. I started using drugs and drinking, and I dropped out of school, and I started being crazy because I didn't have value in my life anymore. If we have 15 or 20 of these enlightened witness or people who love us, the loss of one of these is painful, but it's not devastating. But if you only have one person or two people who know your situation and can help you to feel loved and valued and safe, and then they pass, it's a terrifying, devastating experience. And the people in your group room will be able to tell you about that because it's there. The person who loved them passed, and then they navigated the world on their own, and it didn't go well. So I want to leave it there. I will probably do a part 2 of the Enlightened Witness coming up in the next month or two, because there's so much more to talk about. But for now, if you can recognize and help your group members to recognize the value of that one or two or few people who loved us and saw something in us that we were having trouble seeing in ourselves at the time. I don't have to talk somebody in to being okay. I don't have to say, look at all the great things you've done. Can't you see how wonderful you are? Oh my gosh, I just have to help them connect to their own story. Because when people connect to their own story and see, oh, Grandma, she didn't have to love me. She had a lot of things going on in her life, but she always made time for me. She was always so excited to see me. She saw something worthy and lovable in me that at the time I wasn't able to see in myself. Wow. And then what if I believed that to be true? How would my life change? Give it a try. Plug it in. 3 columns on the board. Who's the person? What did they do? And what was the message about you? Watch the conversation in your room change to a more internal focused conversation about love and the doorway to the cruelty and the pain that made the love so important and so valuable. So happy March. We'll see you in April. And thanks so much for listening. And if you plug this into your group room, let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear about it. See you later. Thanks so much.